There's been a debate sparked on the internet. It is very interesting. Reason from TDE, he got on with Van Lathan and said that Fabulous is better MC than Andre 3000. I think we have talked about certain sentiments before on this show. Where do you want to start with this,
No, no,
man?
you
Do you
first.
want me
Go
to
ahead.
start?
No, 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 no. I'm gonna take my time.
Okay, I'm gonna take my time with this. First of
Yeah,
all,
no,
I
no,
think
take your time. Take your
first of all,
time.
listen, I want people to understand that I don't like to pat myself on the back on anything, but I know we got a whole bunch of people in this room. I'm very confident that I probably know more Andre 3000 lyrics than anybody in this room. I
Here
would
we
love
go.
to challenge that.
Here we
Any
go.
song, any verse, whatever, whatever. I'm born and raised in Atlanta. Outkast in the middle of their run, their prime. I've listened to their music backwards. I've seen the article that I've written about Akumina and how high I hold Akumina. It changed my way of even looking at hip hop altogether. But what we have to stop doing is we have to stop pulling Andre 3000 out of Outkast as if he is an individual and he can be compared to other individual solo acts. It's just not fair to anybody. I think the best way to put it, and we know how skilled Andre is as an MC, as an individual lyricist because of his work in Outkast. The best way to do this is just say Andre's disqualified from these conversations. Because if we want to break it down, me and Cooper on the phone earlier. Let's go verse for verse, right? Just to put things in context. And I think I compared it to like a 3-point shooter. Let's just say somebody went out there and shot 10 threes in a season and they made six. Yeah, you're 60% from the field from three, but you're not going to be in the rankings with a guy who shot 100 threes and made 45. You don't qualify. And I think that just based on the lack of solo material, we don't even know if we would like an Andre song with three Andre verses. It's never happened. It's never happened where we actually heard an Andre song where he had three verses and a hook. We don't know what that even sounds like. We don't know if Miss Jackson is better or worse if Andre has three verses and there is no Big Boy. We just don't know. So we can't sit here and act like we do. Let me go down the list, man, because we we broke this down earlier when we were on the phone. Let's look at Outkast albums and how many verses that Andre has to produce per album.
We did
Sou-
this morning in the car. While I was in the car, you were at the crib. Yeah.
Southern Playalistic, Andre has 14 verses on that album. ATLians is his most output when you talk about verses. 16 and a half verses. Aquemini, as great as it is and as great as he was on there, 12 verses, 12 rap verses. Stankonia, 13 rap verses. Now let's do the math.
That's a long
12,
project too.
12
Say
rap
long.
verses, 12 rap verses for the average hip hop artist, that's four songs. That's four songs. So if we're looking at like Water for Chocolate or whatever, by the first 4 or 5 songs, Common has written and spit more verses than Andre has on a whole album. And to put it in further context, the Blueprint, Jay got 42 verses on that album. It was written, Nas got like 37 verses on there. It's Dark and Hell is Hot. DMX has like 37 verses on there. All of Outkast's catalog together, and even counting Love Below and the 3 verses he had on there, is 56 Dre verses. So all we talking about is 56 verses.
It's
Life After
55 and a
Death,
half if we're being technical.
I counted Life After Death too when we got off the phone.
So did
Biggie
I.
has
I actually did mine.
48 and a half verses on Life After Death. Is that what you got?
How many? Because I counted Life After Death while you were on your rant because I knew you were about to take a minute.
48 and a half. 48 and a half verses from one man. So
How do you
even,
have 48 and a half? Did you count Play a Hater? Is that why?
I didn't. I think the half comes from I Love the Dough.
Where'd you get the 48 from? I got 45 and a half. That's
You got
why I'm at.
45 and a half? Okay.
I got 45 and a half verses. But
Okay.
Mike, so this is what I'm
Even
saying.
even that. I mean,
No.
we're talking about somebody who has been gone for 25 years and he still has more verses than Andre 3000.
Mike, actually, what I was about to say was so take Biggie on Life After Death in those 45 and a half verses. And then, Mike, listen to what I'm about to do. Go put in Who Shot You, Dreams, and the One More Chance remix, and that's more verses right there than Andre 3000's ever did for Outkast.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, you
That's
have,
no, that,
and
that, that's
again, I know
without
a lot
bringing
of
up Ready to
people.
Die or any of the other guest appearances too. So
I
like
know a lot
Biggie
of
almost,
people.
so Biggie has like double Andre's output almost.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are gonna say quality over quantity. Well, I've never heard a Whack Biggie verse, just in his perspective in that sense. And also, you have to factor in the fact that when you show up for one verse, not only do you have the ability to put all of that in there, and I know he addressed that on 16 Ain't Enough, but there are advantages to that as well because you're automatically a highlight. When you sit
Well,
there, let's just do this. Let's just say we take one verse from Silent Murder and put it on a random Mobb Deep song. Yeah, Nas is gonna stand out. But when you got three of those verses, you're standing next to yourself. So the wow factor is balanced out.
yeah,
He's disqualified. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying Andre ain't great. Andre's a great MC in an incredible group. If we want to talk about Outkast and where they stand as far as groups, duos, and all that go, we can have that conversation. They qualify for that. Big Boy qualifies for individualism. But we can't sit here and say someone who doesn't even have one single song with three verses in their 27-year career is qualifiable to go, to debate up against somebody who's done that their whole career, no matter where their skill level is. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying who's better, who's worse. I'm just saying Andre is just disqualified from this conversation altogether. You can't make a legitimate argument without it being an emotional argument.
well, I told you I didn't like this for Fab because of the weight class Andre is always considered to be in, even though there's a brevity of material. It's not fair to Fab. He can't win that fight fairly. And that's why I did go directly to Big, because Big is somebody who, much like Andre, for different circumstances, extremely brilliant with brevity of catalog. And so what I will tell you is that I get what you're saying about the disqualifications, and I would have to agree so. Because, Mike, it's like you and me had this conversation. It's like we don't know if he can make a Dead Presidents or The World Is Yours.
We don't know.
Or Follow the Leader. Like we or I Never Seen a Man Die. Like we don't know if he can make that record, but here's what I will say. Anybody out there that feels like that he's the greatest MC that you've ever heard, Biggie's the guy who you're really being disrespectful to because he wasn't really better than Big when Big was here. Big's features are better still to this day. Big obviously has a solo MC and performer. It's not even a question, or at least it shouldn't be. And even though Andre is great with his delivery and with his voice, I know somebody better. My name's Biggie Smalls.
Well, the thing is, you can't even really compare because it's like,
You can because of greatness and brevity of catalog.
I say
No,
this.
for all Andre, that's for everybody that keeps like talking about how great Andre is. It's like we need to start throwing Big back at him a little bit. It's like, yeah, Big all did all that except for like solo.
Well, this is the thing. You see those memes all the time, and I know we're going back to a sports analogy because, that's what we do on this show. You see those memes like, who do you want taking the last shot? And it was like, Reggie Miller and Ray Allen. And the thing is, I'm going Reggie Miller all day because Reggie Miller has proven when he is the guy and he has taken on the offensive responsibilities of his team in big time situations, he has proven that he can do these things. Yeah. We only saw this from Ray, and I think Ray is incredible. But we saw this when he had a cast of people. And you know what I'm saying? And we could think whatever we want about Andre bar for bar, but we've just never seen him do what Big's done. We've never seen him make A Reasonable Doubt. We've never seen him make A World Is Yours. You could think that he could do that. Shit, we've never seen him make Never Seen a Man Cry. We've never seen that on a rap level. And I think that, Love Below was brilliant on a songwriting level, but on a rap level, we haven't seen these things. So I think he's just disqualified. I mean, somebody in the chat asking J. Cole or Andre, Again, he's disqualified. I
It's
can't
not to see
even.
that. See, that's why I'm saying. You see what people keep doing though. It's like they keep putting people that they know that like has an MC when you hear them, even if they're great. Like Fab and Cole are great. Nobody thinks that they're as great as 3000 who's been listening to 3000, but not fair to the work that those guys put in to
Yeah,
just even make it a conversation. That's what I'm talking about. So if it's
yeah.
gonna be a conversation, let's make it a more fair one. It's like, oh well, why Big got more verses than Fam and Big ain't here? And Big gave us one more chance and Juicy and Everyday Struggle and Give Me the Loot and 10 Crack Commandments and Kick in the Door and My Downfall and Long Kiss Goodnight and What's Beef. Like it is literally ridiculous.
How old is Reason? Look him up.
Uh,
How old is the rapper Reason? He is 35 years old, right?
right.
So the last time that Andre was actually really active as an MC, he was probably like 15 years old, right? I mean, he grew up on Fab shit. So
Yeah.
what's he supposed to say? What's he
No,
supposed to think?
that's what I mean. You can't knock him for that because it's like he might not even know how great Three Stacks really is. He probably doesn't revere a record like Wheels of Steel the way that you and I do and the way that we talked about it this morning.
But that's what happens when you're inactive, though. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
that's
And
what
I'm
I'm
not
saying.
even talking about Outkast. I'm talking about Andre as an individual. When you're inactive, and especially when you're inactive in a way where you don't even go out there and perform your old stuff or even revere your old stuff, I mean, a current generation just doesn't view it the same way. It's just what it is.
I'm trying to level it out a little bit more because, Mike, you want to know what it's really turning into? It's turning into the biggest what if that doesn't involve a tragedy in the history of hip hop. Like most of our what ifs are tragedies. Scott LaRock, Biggie, Pac, Easy, Big L, Pun, Left Eye. Like it's usually centered around tragedy. This is like this has more of like a this feels more like a play even than reality. It's like one of the most talented guys ever doesn't have it in him to show how great he is. It kind of reads
Well, listen,
it's
how
almost
great are you?
Shakespearean. Like I hate to bring it up, it's very
I was
Shakespearean.
gonna say though, how great are you as an individual if you don't have it in you? It's just what it is, and I think
No,
we're
I mean,
not. This is
Mike,
the
there's
thing. We're
evidence.
not
There's
giving Big Boy enough credit. We're not giving Big Boy enough credit to what not only he adds to Outkast, but what he adds to Andre. He made Andre feel comfortable enough to get on the mic.
No, we have evidence that he can be that guy. The Outkast projects are the evidence. It's just the evidence is old now at this point. And quite frankly, I'm going to tell you, the audience, like I was telling you in the car, well, shoot, it sounds like most of these hits are Big Boys now when you look back on it in retrospect anyway. Players Ball, Southern Playalistic, AT Aliens. What that sound like to you? Rosa Parks. I told you my aha, hush that fuss. Everybody move to the back of the. That's Big Boy. You know, so it's like if you actually start So Fresh, So Clean, Mike. So like when you actually start going and looking like at the hits. I mean, if you really want to have the conversation is really did Big Boy use all his peak solo records on Outkast records? Because that's what it's starting to sound like to me.
Well, this is what I will say about Big Boy, and I think we've covered this on a previous show too.
Sound like he could have had a real great solo career if some of these records are solo records because he's shown the propensity to go give you solo records.
To piggyback off of that, though, I feel like that the Outkast brand and where Outkast was taking music, you know, chiefly on some of the direction of where Andre was going artistically, it handicapped Big Boy where Big Boy couldn't go out there and do Big Boy type of shit. You know what I'm saying? Where it was like they took it so far as a unit that if Big Boy were to go out there and put out a solo record with stuff like West Savannah and like the record that he just put out, people overlook it because it's not Outkast forward thinking type of way. You know what I mean? I think if Big Boy would have dropped like a solo album in the midst of them doing like Benz or Beamer and AT Aliens, he would have shined. But once they start taking it further and further, it was like the Outkast brand was more so benefiting Andre as a soloist than it was Big Boy. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Listen to ATLians. Every day I sit while my nigga be in school thinking about the second album at the dungeon shooting pool. Like he's in go mode and laying down the tracks, and it appears to be, to me, in retrospect, that is more how that relationship worked after the first album.
Yeah.
Dre was off on whatever wave that he was riding from album to album, and Big Boy is staying locked in. And what I'm saying
And
is
adjusting
that
to whatever.
adjusting to whatever. But Mike, I'm talking about the quality of these records. He did most of this stuff waiting on Dre to come through, and Jay's jumping in, and he's jumping in wonderfully and brilliantly because that's who he is as an MC. But Mike, this is Big Boy's solo career on a lot of these records.
Yeah. Leroy Green says Big Boy makes Andre's eccentric rhymes sound cooler. And you know what? I think for a lot of people who weren't a part of just, their whole run, they didn't see how people thought a lot of the stuff that Dre was doing was weird. Now, it was never one of those things where he wasn't spitting. You can never deny that. But Big Boy made whatever Dre was doing cool, whether it was the blonde wigs, whether it was the shoulder pads. And people would ask Big Boy about it, and Big Boy would co-sign it. And that went a long way. And that gave Andre the freedom to do whatever.
It didn't go a long way, Mike. It went all the way.
Yeah, that gave Andre the freedom to do whatever because he knew Big Boy was right here. And, you know what I'm saying, that was anchoring, I guess, the foundation of Outkast.
He held the street aesthetic of Outkast down. Hip-hop is still something built, what, Mike? In the streets. Big Boy held that down when Dre was off riding those waves.
No,
yeah.
For real.
Yeah, for real. And making dope records in the process. So,
So, yeah, again, they're a unit.
Talk about Big
they're
Boy.
a unit.
Once again, we need to be talking more about Big Boy.
No, I agree.
Like, we got to talk about the one that won a rap. You know what I'm saying?
Now, Big Boy's better than Fab, in my opinion. And if somebody wanted to say something else, I can't disagree with that, whatever. But, I mean,
the regional bias is really going to show itself because everybody from up top is going to tell you Fab, but everybody from down here is going to tell you Big Boy.
And I just think that, honestly, man, Andre's just disqualified from the conversation altogether. And I say that respectfully because we can't, and I've said this even when it comes to Lauryn Hill. And I know the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is a beautiful and incredible album. I don't know if it's a hip-hop album. It has hip-hop elements to it. It's a hip-hop album. Might not be a rap album. But with that being said...
It's not a hip-hop album, Mike. It's an R&B album.
Okay.
It's a solo album. It's a solo album of hip-hop moments. The Final Hour and Lost Ones. Other than that...
Doo-Wop, too. Doo-Wop, and she got a verse on Everything Is Everything. But yeah, that's more rapping than Dre ever did on Love Below, though, if we want to be 100.
Well, this is what I kept saying. This is like, no. Lauryn Hill showed very, very briefly. It's like, no, I can make classic hip-hop records on the solo.
Lauryn Hill showed that she can make a... Yes, Lauryn Hill showed that she can make a rap record. All those records are 10s. Mike, all 3 of those records are 10s. All 3 of them are 10s. She showed that she can make a rap record with 3 verses and a hook. Dre has never shown that.
By herself. And if you want, she'll sing the hook too.
She'll sing the hook too. And see, even with that being said, that's one album. So it's like,
sing the hook.
Do I think that she could have done a sophomore and third album just as great or somewhere at that level? Yes. But I'm not going to sit here and act like it happened. It didn't happen, unfortunately. And for whatever reason that Dre doesn't want to rhyme or doesn't want to have a solo career or doesn't want to just be active, period, that's his prerogative. But what we're not going to do is just sit there and give you fantasy points off of just, you know what I'm saying, off of what we think could have happened. Like you said, this is a coulda, woulda, shoulda, or a what if, rather, that doesn't even need to be a what if.
You know what?
You're alive and breathing.
You know who Andre reminds me of? Like another sports analogy in reference to how people talk about him. People talk about Andre, the MC, the way we talk about Barry Sanders, the running back.
Somebody said that in the chat, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because we do, but here's the thing about it. Barry Sanders played, 10 years, Mike? 15,000 yards, 100 touchdowns, 5 yards a carry, like 5 or 6, 1,500 yard plus seasons. He got a resume that speaks to the adulation, and he's got the plays to go with it. Dre just got the plays. Like, he got the runs. He got the Barry Sanders runs. Barry Sanders got 15,000 yards and averaged 5 yards a carry. Like, he got the bulk and the numbers to back it up. Dre don't have the numbers to back it up. He just got them 50-yard Barry Sanders runs.
Miss Mo says Dre says he gets anxiety when he hold on. Chat's going by so fast. Dre said he gets anxiety when he tries to write now. That hey y'all Hollywood fame. The thing is, listen, I've heard him say this too, and I've heard the whole stage fright thing. He's also said that Outkast as a unit, when they were, making the album, it felt like that the expectations weren't there. So it gave them something to reach for. But once the adoration and the expectations got there, it felt like they had nothing to do it for, at least, from his perspective. But see, my thing is, that's what greatness is truly a testament of. When you got somebody like Stevie Wonder, he didn't just sit there and say, you know what, I made, I don't want to say Songs in the Key of Life, but before that, I made Innovisions. I can't follow this up. You know what I mean? That's when you're great, when you make Innovisions and then you come back and you're making like Songs in the Key of Life, you make Talking Book, you do all this in a decade.
Actually, yeah, I get you, Mike. I think it's like Talking Book.
I'm all out of order. Talking Books first.
Talking Book and Intervisions, it's like Stevie wasn't scared. Stevie went and banged out like another 3 or 4 classics.
Yeah. After you make Purple Rain, you go out there and make Sign of the Times. Like, you make after you make Off the Wall, it gets the reception it gets. You take it up a next level, you make Thriller. Like, this is what greatness is about. And even if we take it on a rap level, like, you think there weren't times where Jay was like, I'm uninspired, or Jay-Z that is, or this album was way too successful for me to follow up, or this hit was way too successful for me to follow up. You follow it up. That's what great individuals do.
So he spoke to something, and
look at Kanye West. Shit.
Yeah, he spoke to something, and he spoke to it a few times, and it's like what he's really speaking to is like, okay, there's some mental health issues going on. Okay, that's essentially what he's talking about when he's talking about his reluctance to rap. He's talking about the manifestation of some mental health issues if he's speaking about anxiety or difficulty with people and all those things. Okay, go get help.
And that's fine. Like I said,
no. Let me stop for a second.
Go ahead.
And here's why you go get help. Because for whatever you feel about rap right now, rap is what took you to where you are. Mm-hmm. Let's not get this confused. And so if you're having issues with the craft that took you to the heights, to a place that you can actually get help for these issues, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Don't just come out here and tell the public that you have anxiety. You have the means, you have the knowledge, you have the understanding to do something about that.
But you know what? On top of that,
don't use your mental health against us. That's not cool. Like, you got resources to go see about that, fam.
But even if that's not being used against us, right? Like, if you don't want to make any music anymore.
Every time he talks about not wanting to rap, Mike, he goes back to this anxiety, this hesitancy. Those are mental health issues. Stop feeding the public the mental health issues for why you don't want to rap, unless you're going to go get help about those issues. Don't just tell us that you got these issues and then don't get no help about it, brother. And tell, well, I'm not rapping because that's an issue for me. Well, it's like, okay, go get help. You have the money, the time, and the resources.
You could do that, go get help, and you don't have to rap anymore. But we can't
even have to tell us that. That's what I'm saying. It's
right.
Like at the point that you tell us that, you put yourself on Front Street more and open to more conjecture.
But we're not going to sit here and rank you on what could have been or should have been. And like I said, Outkast has an incredible, illustrious catalog between the two of them. But that's exactly what it is. It's Outkast's catalog. It's not Andre's catalog. So we're not going to sit here and say, okay, Fabolous or Dre, and then we're just pulling songs from Outkast's catalog. That's not fair. I mean, just point blank, period. And we're not going to do that. And so, like I said, I think the best way to do it is just say, you know what? Andre's just disqualified from individual conversations.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think that's disrespectful because you don't have individual work. You have to earn that individual adoration to be pulled out as an individual.
I mean, Mike, he doesn't have no Keeping It Gangsta or Breathe. Like a Mike performance solo where you're like, no, they got nice.
He does. I mean, even if we go to Q-Tip, he doesn't have a Bonita Applebaum as a soloist. He doesn't have a Vibrant Thing as a soloist. He doesn't. It's just they don't exist.
Mike, I told you he's never even done a get a hold off Beats Rhymes in Life. That might be Q-Tip's best mic performance.
He doesn't even have Butter, what Fife did. Shit, he doesn't even have a West Savannah, what Big Boy did on the Crewman.
West Savannah's classic.
It is. It's brilliant.